Far off tales and children's stories, that's all that is.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This video is a redo. So I'm doing this video again because I schedule stuff up like ages away because of if I get a bit of time to do a video, I'll do one. And in the summer I did a load that some of them haven't appeared yet because I've moved them back because of more time sensitive videos. And this one was originally done in October, and since October that video's become out of date, partly because at the beginning of the original video I mentioned some of the things I was doing, and now I'm doing more things, and also I've had more books that go towards this project, so I'm doing it again. So this is a project I've mentioned before in passing. I've mentioned it whenever I've talked about what I'm going to do this year, but I haven't done an announcement video properly, so that's why this is an important video, especially as with everything I'm doing it could be tempting to just not do it but I am going to do it because I haven't got very strict parameters with this, same as the Ray Bradbury one. The Ray Bradbury one I'm going to start soon. I've got a couple of books to read before I can get going on it, but I can't wait to get going on, and I will do. And I know this month I'm going to read a Ray Bradbury book, the earliest thing I have. So I'm going to do that, and with this one I'm going to be interweaving this amongst the other things I'm doing. And I know it's going to be a long project. I want it to be a long project. I want it to be a proper deep dive into this subject. So I don't mind announcing it, even though I'm doing lots of other things as well, because the Historathon, for example, lasts all year, but this is going to be longer than a year. So I knew it would be longer than a year anyway. So this should be really, really interesting. What I'm doing is a proper investigation and a reading project on folk tales, fables, and folklore. So I'm looking at anything connected to that. And the reason why I want to do it over a long period of time is I want to go across the world. So this is not about just looking at Brothers Grimm. Well, I am going to start with the Brothers Grimm, but it's not just about that. It's looking at different traditions, myths, legends, fables, folk tales, folklore from different parts of the world. So I'm going to go over the books that I'm currently using, and obviously as time goes on I'll probably add to it. But if you guys want to get involved, then it'd be nice to see some comments about what you already know, or what you've already read, or what you'd recommend, or anything that you like in this video that you've never seen before, or you've been curious to read. And maybe there could be some kind of collaboration going on as well. But I'll just go through what I've got. So I'm starting with the Brothers Grimm. So I have a really nice copy of all of the Grimm stories here in this big book. It's a big old 800 page plus book with illustrations on it. Each story's got a nice illustration with it. But it's the complete Brothers Grimm stories, so that'll be a really cool thing to read. So I'm definitely going to start with this, and whether or not I read the whole thing before I move on to another one, I'll just see how that feels. But I can't wait to get stuck into this. And I've actually got Philip Pullman's relatively recent retelling of Grimm Tales as well, so I could read that around the same time, or I could leave that till last and make it go full circle. I don't know. But once I've done the Brothers Grimm, I will be reading Aesop's Fables. So Aesop's Fables are obviously iconic stories, and I look forward to hopefully looking at some of the obscure ones that I've never heard of before, as well as obviously some of the more famous ones. So Brothers Grimm, Aesop Fables is a good place to start, I think, with this. I haven't got a book yet on Hans Christian Andersen stories, so I need to do that. That's a hole in this. But anyway, once I've done that, so that's Europe. And another part of Europe that I'm going to be looking at is the Scandinavian area. I've got this awesome book for Christmas. This is one of the books I got recently, which made the other video out of date. Norwegian folk tales. It's just really nice the way it feels as well, the kind of design of it. I quite like the typeface, so it's very small, but yeah, Norwegian folk tales is another book I'll be looking at. If you're curious, this is from Pantheon Books in New York, which is connected to Penguin actually. So yeah, researched and edited by 3 different guys there. So Norwegian folk tales, and there is another again like the Philip Pullman one. Neil Gaiman's recently done the Norse mythology book, so I was going to look at that at some point as well, around probably a similar kind of time. And I was going to read Beowulf. So big shout out to Vin, because I know Vin loves Beowulf, and I'm getting to know Vin a little bit more lately, which is cool. And he brought me into the Historathon thing, which was really lovely. And I've never read Beowulf. I've had this for ages. This is a Norton Critical Edition, so it's got loads of essays from other people about it, including Tolkien, I think, at one point. So these critical editions are always interesting anyway. I remember having some Shakespeare with that as well. I've had this years. So I'm going to read this, finally going to read Beowulf. So I don't know if this is going to be difficult with the language or if it's going to be fine. So I don't know. I might speak to Vin before I read it. But anyway, Beowulf is definitely going to be part of that. And then if clearly we're talking about Europe, then we need to talk about Celtic folklore and English folklore and stuff like that. So at the moment, I feel like I've got something else that's not here, but I don't know. At the moment, there's the Celtic Myths and Legends book. So I don't know how much you guys know about the Celts, but it's a big part of British history. And there's a Welsh bit of folklore here, which is the Mabinogion. Mabinogion. That's how I'm saying it. So this is a Welsh piece of folklore. So I'm going to be reading that. So that's an Everyman book, translated by Gwyn Jones and Thomas Jones. Gwyn Jones is a very Welsh name, isn't it? And then I've got a Scottish folk and fairy tales book as well. And then I'm going to be going to China. So I was really excited about reading Monkey. So this is often called Journey to the West. And there's lots of different translations, lots of different versions. I know Monkey from my childhood and the 80s series Monkey. I don't know if you've seen the 80s series Monkey, but that's my interaction with the legend. And when I was a kid, it was like the thing that everyone watched. We all absolutely loved it. We talked about it in the playground at school. I think it was on at 6:30 on BBC Two, and it was a really big thing. We loved Monkey, and this is the actual legend. So I think the series was, some kind of action-based interpretation of it that wasn't that strict. So it'd be interesting to find out what the actual legend was. So but I know that Pigsy and Sandy are in the legend. So it wasn't completely made up. Some of this was from the legend. I mean, it is made up, but you know what I mean. So Monkey is one big thing. I can't wait for that. That's the Penguin classic. And I did find a book secondhand a while back called Famous Chinese Short Stories. And these are actually like fairy tales. They date right back to really, really early Chinese history. So I don't know if it's got dates here. Half the stories selected come from the Tang period, the golden age of the literary tale. which opened up a world of magic, chivalry, war, and romance. Some of the finest stories from the Sung period are also included, as well as the 3 of the best Qing tales. So those are 3 dynasties that go right back. And yeah, so some of these do definitely date back before the first millennium, so 8th and 9th centuries. So this is an interesting addition to that. And then I've also got this, which is, you can see it's from the same company, the same series as the Norwegian folk tales. And this is Chinese fairy tales and fantasies. And this is a book where I'll just read a little bit at the back. These tales from China are richly underscored by an ancient philosophical battle, a Taoist challenge to the hierarchical rigidity of the Confucian order, Confucius, famous Chinese philosopher, which gives the stories an edge and power uniquely their own, an enthralling collection. Brimming with magic and morals, these enchanting legends and myths bring to mind familiar fables, yet possess an aura that is wholly Chinese, enlightening and enjoyable reading. So this collection spans over 20 centuries of Chinese literature, from the 5th century BC to the 18th AD. So this looks really, really cool. So this is another important addition. This is one of the ones I got for Christmas, which made that other video out of date. So Chinese fairy tales and fantasies. I'm going to look into the Arabian Nights. So Arabic tradition is very familiar with us because of Aladdin and the Ali Baba and 40 Thieves and Sinbad as well. So we have got some references in popular culture to these things, but I've got 3 books that cover this, and my guess is that this is the best one. But anyway, Richard Burton is very famous, and not the actor Richard Burton, but a different Richard Burton, very famous for his translations of this. And when you sort of look up, well, which one should I get? Everyone recommends the Richard Burton one. So I went for this, but then I was a little bit gutted when I got it, because this is the Collins Classics one. And I don't know if you know much about Collins Classics, but they're usually a little bit cheaper, and there's usually just the text. There's no introductions or prefaces or extra interpretations, like I said there with the Critical Northern edition, where of Beowulf, where you had like even some comments from Tolkien and stuff like that. There's nothing like that with this. It's just strictly the stories, which is fine. But then also, when I looked through it, there was some missing that I thought I'd find in that story. So I did find this, which is a Penguin Classics, very pretty Penguin Classics edition. So this is Tales from 1001 Nights. So I'll get into the story of where the 1001 Nights come from and what the idea is behind these folk tales when I get to them. But it's a really interesting story anyway. And yeah, this is very nicely designed. And this, I think this does feature features Ali Baba and 40 Thieves there. And I think Aladdin's in it as well. Sinbad the Sailor. So Sinbad's in there. So some of the ones that I was expecting to see in the other one is in this. But I also think it's probably got, it's got editorial notes and an introduction. There's probably a lot more to it as well. So this was more expensive, but I'm really glad I've got it. So there's that one. And then I did find this one. I don't know what this is going to add to it, but this is a part of the Penguin Popular Classics. So if you have a look on the back, it says adapted from Richard Burton's unexpurgated translation by Jack Zipes. So this has gone for another stage. So it's not just a translation; it's a new adaptation of the translation. So this might be written for a younger audience, or it might be just written in a more modern way. I'm not sure. So I'll find out when I get to that point. But the Arabian Nights is a big feature of international folklore, so I think it's an important thing to cover. But then I had this really interesting find, which was a big reason why I wanted to do this project, because I couldn't believe this when I found it, and I just think it's so interesting, and I went for it. It was a second-hand book, and it was very expensive, but I couldn't believe it. It's really beautiful condition, and it's something that I've never seen before, and I couldn't resist it. So this is The Heart is a Mirror the Sephardic folktale. So this is about Jewish folklore, and with my experience as a music teacher, when I used to do a unit, I used to absolutely love teaching because I'm a big fan of traditional music across the world, and I did a world music unit. So I used to love doing that, and I used to talk about the Ashkenazi Jews because we used to talk about the klezmer tradition, and I love klezmer music. So I used to really enjoy doing that, and I did used to give them some background about the different kinds of Jews that were that had their own traditions. And the Sephardic Jews I didn't talk about as much because it wasn't I wanted to concentrate on klezmer, but I did give them some background on that. And this is such an interesting, it's a massive book that goes into loads of detail about the power of these stories in their culture and the way that they were used and what was in those stories. It's really, really interesting. So when I get to that, I'm going to do a big feature on this book, and I can do because it's huge. So let's have a look at where it goes. Yeah, it's about 660 pages, and really detailed. I mean, this is not just like illustrations. This is really, really loads of really good information. So the heart is a mirror, the Sephardic folktale. So that's another element I'll be tackling through this project. And then the other thing, I quite like the sort of literary criticism side of fairy tales, folklore, fables, that kind of thing as well. And there's a very famous author called Marina Warner, and she's done loads of books on this. And this was the first one she came out with, and it was one that I'd always wanted to get. And I got that when I decided to do this project. I got this around October time. From the Beast to the Blonde, on fairy tales and their tellers. And it's about, again, like we were talking about with some of these other books that tackled it, this is about the place of fairy tales in culture, and how these stories have an impact on us. So this is a really cool book that I'm going to be using, and I will hopefully get some others by her. She's done a few, and there was another one that was kind of bought as often, because I used to sell this a lot when I used to work in the bookshop. So there we are, that's the project. It's going to take quite a while to do it, and as I've said before, there is a lot going on this year. So I've got the Ray Bradbury thing, I've got the Historathon, I've got the David Bowie thing that, again, I haven't done a video for that yet, but I've been working on it. So I've got some material to do a video of. So I'll be doing that as well. And then I've got this folktale, fables and folklore thing as well. And it's all, that's all mixed in with some other things. I'll just do some general reviews, the film stuff I wanted to do. And I am going to get involved in some of the events like June on the Range and stuff like that. So yeah, a very busy year, but I want to do this in a gradual way, so we'll see how it goes. But I'll start with the Brothers Grimm and go from there, go around the world. So let me know what you think would be a good thing to tackle. I haven't got any Japanese stuff there yet, and I do want to tackle Japanese folklore. Oh, that was another thing that made me think it was a good idea when I read Nothing But Blackened Teeth, and that's a horror novella that takes Japanese folklore and uses it for a modern story, and I like that story. And that was another thing that was sort of jigging about in my brain that made me think that sort of an investigation of folklore would be interesting. So yeah, I do need to get some Japanese stuff as well. But there's all sorts of things. I mean, African folklore, I wanted to get some African books, but I just didn't. I put them on the Christmas list, but I got the Norwegian and Chinese ones, which is cool. So I do want to get some African stuff as well. So there we are. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. As always, thank you so much for the support of the channel. See you later. Bye.
Picture